Toy.
Go? Yeah. I want to thank you for helping me see the dark clouds gathering, for showing me the crypt of medieval crimes on which modern Europe has been built, the buildings erected on the bones of the dispossessed, the revolutionaries, the nomadic, the Jewish, the Muslims, and the heretic people, any other who fell from grace of whatever church or power ruled at the time. I find myself in libraries and cafes, classrooms and canteens talking about love with people who have seen war and killing, with those who have lost entire families in a single night of bombing, with those who have family in regions where every morning wakes to find another person disappeared. If we will listen to the pain and fear, the anger and suffering in the gathering madness, can we hear love? In the gathering madness, a poem of our guest tonight, Fiona Bolger's new book, chapbook, published by Moonstone Arts, Reconstituting Myself. Good evening, and welcome to Philly Loves Poetry, a collaboration between the Moonstone Arts Center of Philadelphia and PhillyCAM. The focus of our program is to give our viewers and our listeners the experience of the rich culture of poetry in the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding area. So tonight we have a very special guest. As I said, her recent chapbook, Reconstituting Myself, and we'll talk about that title, was published by Moonstone. Fiona is an Irish poet, mentor, and creative facilitator. She's the author of Love in the Original Language and a Compound of Words, co-editor of Kin, anthology of Roma, traveler, and nomadic women's writing. Fiona's poems have appeared in Poetry Island Review, Chattahoochee Review, Southward, The Brown Critique, among others. Fiona's facilitation and creative practice are polyvocal, plurilingual, and cooperative. Fiona welcomes all languages and works to create language sharing, poetry making spaces. Fiona also recommended an article that was written by Areta Stepien, I don't know if I'm saying her name, and the title of the article is Migrant Voices in the Plurilingual Poetry and Creative Practice of Fiona Bolger. And it's in ELOPE, English Language Overseas, Perspectives and Inquiries, 2024, volume 21, number 2. So welcome, Fiona. It's really great to have you. I would like, really start off by saying I really feel it's an honor that, your chapbook is been published by Moonstone. And I think it's great, and that you're here really kind of on a grand tour of the world of poetry in the city of Philadelphia. And and we'll talk about this on Sunday and yesterday. You ran workshops in Philly at different locations, and we can talk about your approach to Philadelphia. But first, I wanted to ask you, I was really struck by the title of this book, Reconstituting Myself, and looking up the definition of, the word. I mean, restoring something to its original or former state by adding something. So can you share with us why you selected that title and, kind of expand on what that means in the context of this book?
So I accept the definition, but when I think of reconstituting, I also think of something which has been kind of maybe desiccated and dried out, and it becomes its constituent parts, and it's no longer whole. So it's kind of, there's all bits and pieces, and then you do something like, maybe if it's a powder, you add water and stir it, and then it's reconstituted. So I suppose I'm now in my 50s, I've had a bit of a life, and I kind of am beginning to think about, okay, who am I? And who am I in this world now? And the world itself is shifting and changing and breaking down in many ways. And I'm trying to think about, how do I put the parts of the world that are within my sphere of influence and myself, how do I rearrange things? How do I put me together in such a way that I can be a positive person in the world and a positive influence in the world? Right. And I've also worked in the law from various angles. Not in a in a professional capacity as a kind of a legal secretary, but not in a professional capacity as a trained lawyer. So I'm also really interested in how the law impacts on people's lives, because as a poet, I'm interested in language, and the law is language, and the language literally changes people's lives and influences and controls how people's lives are. So I'm kind of interested in that. And you know, if you want to look at individual laws, where are those laws all coming from? What's at the bottom of it? And in Ireland, we have Bun Rocht and Heron, which is, you know, the basic law, the rule, the basic constitution of Ireland. And so it really kind of drew me in. And I said, okay, small blue book, only costs a £5. Let me get my hands on that and see what I can do with it. And I'm also really interested in the practice of people like Norbert Philip and Divya Victor and Nicola Seeley. And I'm really interested in how they take texts, legal texts and documents and applications for citizenship. And you know, in the case of Norbert Philip, the Zong, the insurance judgment, and how they take those documents and interrogate them, lock themselves inside the document and really consider, what does this document mean? And I think poetry is a way to interrogate documents, and to interrogate documents that are impacting our lives, and thinking about how those documents can be different and how we can change them. And so I suppose that drove me to the Constitution, and then that kind of silly pun, reconstituting myself. So I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I jumped over something that you asked to share with our audience, and that's a poem about Philly, and also, you know, to share your experience of being in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You want to read your poem now?
I would absolutely love it. And I was going to read it anyway, even if you hadn't asked me, Charles. I was just going to push my way in. So this is a poem which I wrote in a workshop on... Days are getting confused in my head. Not yesterday, the day before. So 2 days ago. And we had a wonderful bunch of people, just so inspiring. And one of the practices that I have in my workshops is to ask everybody in the workshop to put the words they have for a certain idea. So it might be all the words in your head in all the languages to do with love, or all the words in your head to do with greeting somebody and asking them, like, what's the gossip, what's happening, what's the news, gis the tea. So shufi mafi would be the Arabic. So I've picked up working with people all over the world. I've worked in India in these workshops, I've worked in Ireland, and now here in Philly. And in Philly, I have to call out, Carol Matulis is the most amazing collaborator in workshops. I always try to co-facilitate, because I feel I learn something more from another facilitator too. So this poem was written in that workshop. There are 2 words which I borrowed from people who were in the workshop. One I got from Carol, it's Haitian Creole, and it means, how are we? So it's not how are you and how am I, but it suggests that I can only be well if you are also well. So your well-being and my well-being are interconnected, and the word is kumanuyai. And the other word was embaragani, which is Swahili, Kiswahili, for how are you? So apologies for my mispronunciations. The third thing that I got from the workshop was silence. Because one participant said, in my culture sometimes, if people want to know the news, they just give you silence. And I thought that was Amazing. So I'm going to read the poem. So it's called Philadelphia, Here I Come. And anyone who knows the Brian Friel play will get what I'm at. Hey, Philly, I've always been coming here. And now I've arrived. You've been greeting me all week. And everywhere I go, kumanuye. I want to know your story, all your stories. You show me your murals. You play me your jazz. And I love you for this. You are a city of people with their eyes wide open. They are. You are. We are. I'm learning, Philly, to stop and look quietly at your art, to listen carefully to your jazz, to learn your language. Mbaragani, they say, when I ring 411. Peace and joy to you, you big love of a city. You're more than a cream cheese, bee's knees, and I kind of love you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Uh, if you would you have that typed up if possible? And if it's okay with you, once you do that, would it be okay to share it on social media?
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Great. I'd love that. I'd love
yeah.
that. Thank you.
So we got, about the title of your book, but inside the contents are really amazing. How much territory you cover in a chapbook, and I was really extremely impressed. The one thing that really grabbed me, and we've talked about it, and that's your perspective and the words and on the Irish Constitution. Here I am, an Irish American lad. Okay, I've been to Ireland in 2014, I believe it was, and I guess from what you see from afar, you see Ireland as kind of an alternative to what is happening in the United States with the assault on the Constitution, with the assault on the bedrock of what America is all about, that anybody can come here and start a new life and start over. And now we're undoing that. And I'm not saying that's happening in Ireland, but it's happening all over the world. So can you discuss with us what this focus is on the Irish Constitution? And you can kind of educate us. Because I think if I said in our chat, I go on and I look at different reels on Facebook, and I see members of the Dáil standing up very eloquently protesting what is happening in Gaza, and very, very, very stringent. And so that, to me, is a characterization of where Ireland and the Irish people stand as a government, on this crisis that is happening in the world. So I've said a lot, but could you share with us about the Irish Constitution and issues you have and that you've discussed in these poems?
Yeah. Well, just to take it piece by piece, I think Irish people are very much in solidarity with those who find themselves oppressed all over the world. And I think there's a history of that. However, unlike the same as every other community in the world, there are people with different opinions, and there are divisions within society, and there's hypocrisy. So sometimes people will say, this is what we support, and yet their actions will say something different. So I'm actually very proud. My cousin is in the Shannon, and her name is Patricia Stevenson, and recently she read the names of the babies who have died in Gaza in the recent past. And that made me so proud of her. And there are many other politicians standing up and calling things out. What I find amazing about the Irish Constitution, or one really interesting fact that not many people know, is that the Irish Constitution is in 2 languages, which is a poet, especially a plurilingual poet's absolute dream. So we have a text which is already, splitting itself up. We have it in English and we have it in Irish. And legally, the Irish version takes precedence over the English version. So where there's a difference, you can go into court and you can say, well, actually, the Irish version takes dominance here, and so this is what I understand by the Irish version. So there is a kind of an official reading of the Irish language constitution, and that's kind of taken as read. But I think as a poet, who cares what I think? So I can think what I want. So let me just go in there and play with it, and let me, like Norbert Philip talked about how this Boateng became, I'm not sure if I'm correctly pronouncing it, but this character, Boateng, became a person, and he was in the room with her as she was inside that text. And he spoke to her, and he allowed her to think differently and to find all of those people who were, all of those enslaved people who were brutally drowned in the Atlantic. And through doing that, she even managed to pull out names for those people. So I'm kind of going into the text with, I'm standing on the shoulders of these wonderful sisters, and I'm trying to do something with the Irish Constitution and find what's in there. So one of the things I found, and I think you were mentioning it, is that the word in Irish for citizen, and citizen literally means somebody who lives in a city, is serónig, which means a free person. Imagine everybody in a country being called a free person rather than being called a citizen, somebody who lives in a city. So this is like, even these small little things, I think we can start to think differently about ourselves. And if you're a serónig, then who are the, by suggesting some people are free, who's not free? And then these are more questions. Are we saying that people who are not Irish citizens who are living in Ireland are not free? And what does that mean? And is that the kind of country we want to live in? And so these are the kind of questions and problems that I'd like to bring up and that I'd like to consider. And I also think it's kind of interesting. The Irish Constitution was voted on. I think there was 90% turnout, 90.3%. No, there was a large turnout. 90.3% of the votes were counted. I think of those votes, 52% were for the Constitution, and the others were against it. So this is really interesting that this decision was made by something like 600,000 people, I think the figure is. And that was made in 1937. So the decisions made by that number of people in that Ireland in 1937, we are still living with that document today, in a very different country with a very different population. And who's missing? Whose voices are missing? What words are missing? What ideas are missing? And I suppose these are things that I want to look at.
And in that one poem, you compare it to the Constitution of 1922 and the Free State.
Yes.
And so what is the difference? I mean, it seems that you say in that poem that the language changed, and it led to some exclusion. Is that correct?
So the 1922 Constitution has, now I have to say I'm not a legal expert, okay? So from my understanding, the 1922 Constitution, the Free State Constitution, had two different parts. The second part is a bit nauseating because it's all about, loyalty to the king and all of that, so we'll just ignore that. But the first part, what really sets me on fire about it, is that it actually has a moment in it where it says the Seanad, which is, we have a bicameral system, and we have the Dáil, which is the where laws are enacted, and the Seanad, which is like the House of Lords in the UK, or your Senate over here. So the Seanad was supposedly a place for those voices which who would not otherwise have been heard. And of course, cynical people will say, yeah, that was the Protestant minority. And I'm thinking, no, hang on. There's an Irish traveller community, our Indigenous people. And why don't we presume that they are the voices that are not being heard? And that bit about the Seanad being a place for voices that wouldn't otherwise be heard, that got lost. So that's not there in the 1937 Constitution. And only in the last, I think, 4 years have we had an Irish traveller in the Seanad. And we still haven't had an Irish traveller in the Dáil. So we are still waiting for that. We have an Irish traveller woman in the Seanad. but we don't yet have someone in the Dáil. So these things kind of interest me.
So when you use the term Irish traveler woman, put that in context of, let's say, in America or some other country. Is that somebody that is like the Roma, or I mean?
Okay, so the Irish traveller community are recognised as their own. Their ethnicity has been recognised in Ireland in the last 10 years. So they are a distinct community. They have their own language, which is Gammon or Cant or Shelta, depending who you speak to. It's called the Gammon, or sometimes it's called Cant, sometimes it's called Shelta. They have their own traditions, their own way of life, and they have experienced racism, exclusion. Their stopping places were taken over. They were moved. They weren't allowed to stop in those places anymore. So where they would traditionally have travelled around the country and stopped in this place in spring, and that place in summer, that place in autumn, that place in winter, those places have all been blocked off. Boulders were used in some cases. And actually, in Ennistimon, some crowd of Irish Americans from Boston decided to put up a plaque to the famine dead in the place where the travellers would traditionally have stopped.
Right.
Yeah, so they were then forcibly given houses or moved into houses, and some people stayed on the road. It was very difficult for them, but some on unofficial stopping sites, and other people ended up were pushed into houses. One of the families I know who was put in a house, the house was at the top of a lane, didn't have proper electricity, didn't have running water, and was in a terrible state. And the isolation from their community was so horrendous that I think in that family there were 9 suicides over the years. And the community with the highest suicide rate in Ireland to this day, the highest rates of homelessness, the highest rates of all kinds of issues, are the traveller community. And yet they are, the most, music, Irish music, traditional music survives, storytelling, and there's so much. Now we have Dr. Rosalie McDonough. She's an academic and a writer. She has written a collection of short stories recently. It's about to come out, but her collection of essays is called Unsettled. You can get it from Skene Press. There's so much documentation available if you just Google Irish travellers. There's Martin Beans Ward, who has a programme on Irish TV every week. There's people, Eileen O'Flynn, who's in the Dáil, in the Shannon. So, this is a community who are really coming forward. They're amazing. They have so much to offer. I work with young Irish traveller poets, and their work is fabulous. So the exclusion that they've experienced, when I try to explain it to Americans, normally they say, oh, they're Indigenous. And I think that's the best way to translate it.
Yeah,
they're the Indigenous community of Ireland.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. They have their, like in America, they have their own Indigenous culture.
Yeah. And they've experienced racism and isolation. And
well, also, what you said about the high incidence of suicide, that's also true. So you talk about working with poets. Can you talk about your approach to this, working with the workshops that you've run, throughout the world, and how you approach it?
So
where do you meet the people? Not meet them, but where do you meet them in the world of poetry in a workshop? Because everybody's at a different level.
Yeah, so I believe everyone's a poet.
Yeah.
So that kind of puts me out of a job a bit, but hey. So if everyone is a poet, if people are willing to come into a room and share their words, then you have a space which is welcoming. One of the exercises that I do, so I just have to point out, by the way, one of the workshops that I facilitate is called Dubilon, and I used to co-facilitate that with a wonderful poet who's Russian and Irish, Paulina Cosgrave, and I now co-facilitate it with Rafael Mendes, who has a new book out, if anybody's interested, The Immigrant Dictionary, and he's Brazilian and Irish, and so we work together, we create a space, we invite people in, so we work with an organisation called Intercultural Language Service, so they provide free free English language classes. So we can say to them, look, why don't you tell anybody who's there they're welcome to come along? So we get people who come along who have fluent English and fluent Spanish and fluent Russian and, you know, maybe 3 or 4 languages. Other people who come along, they speak 3 or 4 languages fluently, but maybe not too much English, and everything in between. We also invite people from the local area. So at the moment, the last few workshops we were running in Charleville Mall Library. So we would say to the people in the area, anybody who's interested, please come in. So we hope to get people who've been living in the area all their lives, people who've just moved in, people who come from the other side of the city but are just passionate about words. And the first thing that I usually do is we read a section from Finnegan's Wake. And it's the section with the washerwomen, and it has lines like, you know, tell me all about it, loosen your talk tapes, you know, tell me, go on, tell me. And, you know, you read this out to a group of people and you say, what's going on here? And everybody's, oh, they're looking for gossip. And everybody in the room knows instantly what's happening. And so people say, oh, Finnegan's Wake, it's so difficult. But, you know, it's obvious what's happening. So everybody hears it, everybody listens. And then I say, take a moment, write down all the words you can think of in all the languages you know for hi, how are you, what's the news? And everybody starts frantically scribbling on the paper. And then we go round the room and you might get 18 different people with 18 different contributions. And oh yeah, well, if you're talking to your granny, you'd say it like this. But if you're talking to your sister, you say it like that. And if it's a guy you've just met on the street, you'd say it like, you know, and this is the subtle, as in what Carol shared, that kumanuyai. So it doesn't mean just how are you, it's how are you and me together in this world. And that's like these things that we learn. And that other person who shared silence. And every workshop I learned something new. So I'm really kind of cheating because I call myself a facilitator, but really I'm there learning. So, you know, the secret's out. I only do it because I get stuff out of it. Very selfish. But and then people write something, listening to each other, you know, taking each other's words. So you end up with people writing yai, blah, 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 blah. Somebody who had never, you know, understood that yai is how you say hi in Brazil. And suddenly you have somebody from Malawi saying yai, you know, and somebody from Brazil writing, you know, mulibwanji. And so you have all of this exchange. And I do believe that if you hold another person's words in your mouth, there's something very precious about that. And I hope that it builds a sense of community and respect, and we can begin to move forward in this world where we are being constantly taken away from each other, disconnected from each other. Maybe one thing I can do is to, in one small way, help people to connect with each other.
So is there that kind of diversity in these workshops? I mean, are you attracting the, you know, kind of a real diversity of people who can appreciate that? You know, they're not all English speakers, obviously.
Well, actually, it's the English speakers we run short of.
Oh.
As in, we end up with a lot of people who speak English in the room, but we find that getting people from the local, like from Dublin, who've been living in Dublin all their lives and who might have grown up speaking English, they're the people that we don't get in the workshops. We get 1 or 2, maybe, you know. So actually, they're the people that I'd love to hear more from in the workshops. So yeah, that's our thing. Is like we're all sitting here, but you know, we the people who come, whether it's 1 or 2 people or 20 people, it's like, you know, they're the people who need to be in the room, and they're the people who want to connect right now with each other, and that's the beauty of it.
Oh, that's remarkable. So we're, you know, really getting actually close to that time when I'm going to turn the forum over to you and you can read poetry. I want to say, you know, before we do, because I was going to ask you the question about style and poetics, but I'm more interested, and I'm sure our audience is more interested in hearing you. But I have to say, from reading, you know, the chapbook as well as reading, you know, other of your books, the form that you use and the what I call the brevity of it is something that I enjoy. I like compact poems on one page, and you could accomplish a lot in a one-page poem. And I think that's a very, very artful. So I just wanted to say that, then I want to turn it over to you and so you can read your poems.
Thank you so much, Charles. It's lovely to be here. So I think I might start with, so I've been looking at the preamble to the Irish Constitution, and any of you have a laptop in front of you, just Google Irish Constitution preamble, and you can see the original, the ur text that I'm playing with. So I've already written and published one version, and this is another version of it. And so the first version was like, I was thinking about how would I like Ireland to look? And then I thought, hey, you know what? And I think it was actually in a workshop where I had people, other people thinking about it. So somebody in the workshop said, why not the world? And I thought, yeah, why not the world? So why not the world? And then I was looking at a book that I'm reading at the moment called Becoming Kin, and it's by Patty Crowetz. And I thought, she had written Becoming Kin was the title. And I misread it as bekinning. And I thought, oh my God, that's what I want to do. I want to be kin. I want to become kin. I want to begin to become kin with everyone, with the world. And so that this is called a new beginning. In the name of this most beautiful earth, on whom we all dwell and to whom we all belong in our deepest star-dusted cells, we, the people of the earth, proudly acknowledge all our obligations to our planet, our fellow species, the environment and ecosystems, and each other. And gratefully accepting the loving work of previous generations to protect and sustain our planet and all who dwell on and within her with due observance of love and justice and tenderness. So that the health of our entire ecosystem and the dignity and the freedom of all people may be assured, truly sustainable balance and eco-harmony be guaranteed, and the unity of our planet's destiny be finally recognized. Do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this reconstitution, this new beginning. So the next poem is in reference to, it's the one that you mentioned, Charles. It's the from 1922 Constitution of the Irish Free State to Bunreacht na hÉireann 1937. And again, you could, there's a reference here to the origin of the world, and there's a beautiful painting by Gustave Courbet, and you might like to look it up. It's called L'Origine du Monde, and it's a painting of a woman. So I was actually going to, at this point, explain something about the Irish traveller community because that's relevant to this as well, but we've already had that conversation. So, from the 1922 Constitution of the Irish Free State to Bunreacht na hÉireann 1937, I know the origin of the world is between my legs. This tips me off to how other bodies can produce and disappear whole worlds. I know I can be swallowed whole by my desire, and a rat snake imprisoned has been known to devour itself tail first. The Free State ate itself, and so the 1937 crowd mutated to be indigestible, a toxic text which should not be swallowed whole. I've searched in vain for a gap through which I can enter and find all sealed. Where 22 hoped unheard voices might find a way into the Shannon, by 37 there's no gap through which another language, another people might squeeze in. The citizen, a city dweller, is protected, but it is no longer a birthright. By blood only you gain the freedom of the country. Seronacht is granted only to some. I pull threads from the texts and see what I can weave from these, the warp and weft of a country. I'd prefer not to cock it up. Everyone born in Ireland no longer entitled to that status of citizen, but even before, there was no mention of the gammon. The native cant couldn't be translated into text, made up of only settled parts. moving parts, people in motion, were seen as a problem to be solved. We the people, this the territory, these the terms. But not always. By blood you belong, but not by birth, and not by blood if the state decides, divides, denies. So I'll pop on to, this is called No Child is Born to Flicker in the Shadows. And this is a reference to the 2004 referendum, when that first part of the Constitution, which says everyone born on the island is Irish, got changed. But the change is made in Article 9. So you could read the beginning of the Constitution and think, oh, yay! And then you kind of read on, and then it says, oh, by the way, remember that bit we said at the beginning? That's not going to hold anymore. We're changing that. So this is that poem. No child is born to flicker in the shadows. I open my daughter's new Irish passport, and printed beneath the mountains, the rivers, and the coastline I find, it is the entitlement and birthright of every person born in the island of Ireland, which includes its islands and seas, to be part of the Irish nation. For one crazy moment, I believe this is true. So the Irish speakers will recognize this next poem, and the Arabic speakers. So in Irish, if you want to say you're welcome, as in a big welcome to everyone, you say Céad Míle Fáilte, which is 100,000 welcomes. And in Arabic, you say Ahlan, well, Levantine Arabic in Lebanon, Syria, Palestine. You would say Ahlan wa Sahlan, and Ahlan means family. You are my family, and Sahlan means may you be at ease here. You've come to a place you can relax, but also it can mean that the land here is good. The land here is flat. It's easy for you. So there's a connection to land in this greeting. So Ahlan wa Sahlan and Céad Míle Fáilte. Keep these in mind. Land of 100,000 welcomes, down to its final 1,000. They lived to regret that Google Translate said welcome was Céad Míle Fáilte in Irish, just as it was Ahlan wa Sahlan in Arabic. You found your family, you are home. Gonairi an bóthar leat, a blessing for those who are leaving, but hardly a welcome to those who would seek a level ground to rest. I never thought I'd see the 100,000 welcomes come to an end, but it seems they are running low. No habaré, don't say it. If you do not want a row, I speak with intent. A discontent who swears dissent. Ahlan wa sahlan, my brothers, my sisters, my family in search of safety, that you may reach us safely. Go shriha shiv slán an seo. And I would like to read next. It's kind of like the poem that brought me to Philly. So how I'm in Philadelphia is I became friendly with John Lavin from Moonstone through Facebook, and he was saying, look, we're doing a project on Finnegan's Wake and jazz, and I'd really like you to read Finnegan's Wake and write a piece about it. And I went, what? Are you mad? I had a copy of Finnegan's Wake that I got when I was 18, from my then boyfriend's mother for Christmas because I asked for it. And I swear I had probably read the first 3 pages. And John said, no, you've got to read it. So I read the chapter he was talking about, and I found it very difficult, but I managed to find a way in, and I wrote a piece. And then John came. He brought with him Elijah Pringle and Carol Metellus and Justin Deutsch, and they all came to Ireland, and we had jazz and Joyce and an amazing time. And then, of course, that's why I came back to Philly, because Philly came to Dublin first. So so that's the history. This poem was actually, we performed it in English, well, whatever this is, and it was translated into Haitian Creole by my friend Carol Metellus. So we actually did a 2-hander. I will save you from the Haitian Creole because my Haitian Creole wouldn't be great, but this is English. And what I've done is I've taken, I think it's 9 words from Finnegan's Wake. All the rest of them are my own. And it's in memory of my grand-aunt Maureen Landers, who's probably the reason I write poetry. I used to sit on her lap, and she was a small woman. She had kind of bleached blonde hair. She wore pearl necklace, big gold earrings, and she told stories. Oh, she smoked, so there was always a smell of smoke and coffee. And she told stories. And she told me this poem, and I've never managed to find a copy of it. I think somebody made it up. It was a version of the One-Eyed God, the green One-Eyed God, Rudyard Kipling. And so I'll just give you the whole of the poem that I'm using in this, and then I'll do it separately. So the poem that my aunt taught me, that I've completely forgotten except for this little bit, is: bury me over in Dublin, under St. James's Gate, with the smell of the porter in every quarter, from the barges coming home late. And when Gabriel sounds his last trumpet to summon the dead ones out, they come in their scores from distant shores. Shall I have time for a bottle of stout? Phoebe the Phoenician. Night marching, dark digging, shadow searching, moon craving, drunk brawling, spunk spraying, hand laying, slap placing, stand swaying, dance singing, hug graving. Footing it, a fitly fearless 4 flounce over Anne Olivia at Euston Bridge, bored teens in June, July, a gathering of gadabouts, gallivanting to the gates of Fiendish Park, a sinistrous place to enter by night, left of the Liffey as you row from the Lizard to the sea. The rightly dear park refuse them. They dare not enter the Dream Hotel a kip, head to their gaffs. Bury me over in Dublin, under St. James's Gate, where Ma Baker held sway till she was swept away by the never-doubting Thomases, believing in the liberties, equalities and civil anties, Jesper Hoods, communities and lefty togethers, where tides change over time, where the ebb and flow of crime wash up at the park gates, drowning beneath Kalapani, or rising from the flames, depending, upending, for some never-ending. Forgive me quick and let me out of here, with the smell of the porter in every quarter, from the barges coming home late. Child sits astride lap of legionary, legendary grand-aunt, gold-hooped and tressed, trussed in corset tied in pearls, scent of cigarettes and soda bread wafts through Sallymount Terrace in Ren-na-la, the Mauldau kept at bay by bleaching, landlord Judy packed a punch till Grand Dame packed her bags. And when Gabriel sounds his last trumpet to summon the dead ones out, ford of Hurdles town, river crossed by many men, again, O'Donovan, Rossa, Grattan, O'Connell, to the triumvirate of Beckett, Joyce, O'Casey, Father Matthew stopped the drink, until by brink one ship, Rosie Hackett made a racket, finally got heard, but still she fights to win some rights. Blow cold, blue bagged, wind blown, no home on footpads, missteps, caught between cracks, no crack, the sky's the limit, rents, developers rolling over the city, while owning Keegan holds the keys, and more streets. They come in their scores from distant shores. Honey fall Shay to the buzzing and guzzling, the babbling and gabbling, the blibbering and gibbering, the mush and the mash of us, the swish and the swash of us, the forward rush and the backward wash of us, the hojame, lean to the face of us, the inge earwig alarum of us, the nat-ne ho-na of us, innos free, we stick our tongues out, doubling, tripling, plurifying our city. Sure, I'll have time for a bottle of stout. And I think I would like to read you another poem. This one is, this poem, the whole book is dedicated at the very beginning to O. And O is a very dear friend of mine who died on the 29th of December, 2023. And it's that poem that you read at the very beginning is addressed to John, my dear friend, John Margolis. So this poem is one of the poems in the book where I'm thinking very much of John. And this poem is called Rosh Hashanah. The apples are ripe on my tree, but I do not pluck them. I am waiting. How can I eat them without you, who love to wallow in pleasure? You bring the bees and sweetness to my life. I am blessed with abundance. Grief is a pearl to be treasured. Every layer a reminder of joy. I wear your love around my neck, even as I swallow the sweet warmth of summer, the crisp sourness of autumn, knowing winter will soon come. And if you get the book, there's actually an illustration by John in the book as well. So I'd like to read you a poem called All You Have to Do Is Say the Words. And as you might have recognized, I steal from everybody. This is a line from Robert Hass. And there's a little bit of Irish at the end, but I think the important thing to remember is that a cailleach is the Irish word for a witch. And in the middle, there's a little bit of Sanskrit because I learned dance, and one of the songs that you learn, one of the chants that you learn before you start dancing is Teshiva, and the line is Aharyam Chandradi, which means his ornaments are Chandra, the moon, and the sun. So here we are. All you have to do is say the words. 1. I'm done with treading softly. I've whispered my desires too long to the city traffic and the raging sea. I've yelled my despair to the four walls and the open fields. 2. None of this matters. None of this can become matter. Remembered as pure energy, wave after wave of my light radiated outward until it disappeared into the darkness of infinity, and my love is in the dust of the stars and the earth and the rocks. My love is eternal and a passing breath, deep as liquefied rock in the oceans and a wisp of cloud in a clear blue sky. 3. I am wishing for a sari the colour of a night sky, embroidered with silver-threaded stars, that I might, like Shiva, wear the moon and stars as my ornaments. Aharyam Chandradi. Wrap myself in a silken sky beside the Atlantic. 4. They chose a twisted rock and a sad story for the cailleach. But I know she is the whole. The mountains curving are her thighs. The cuan is her cunt, ready to birth into the ocean. This is the real magic, the one in our bodies, in the earth. It cannot be taken away. She lies silent until the time is ready, until we are ready. The cailleach is not cailshe, nor luchta, nor of stone, nor water, carrig, nor farige. Is an cailleach cuacht mór an down. Is leihi na cuilta, is na caracha. Ní gá le brethúna ná le dlí. Ó bhunracht go dtí an uachtar áin. Tá folklór nua aquí. Réaltaí agus solas. Gui agus tintrach. Dá na réaltaí, dása na réaltaí, rinca na réaltaí. Ó cré go cré. And just to give a little translation there of the last bit, the witch, the cailleach, is not lost or damaged. She's not of stone or water. She is the great power of the world. For her are the forests and the cities, no need for her judges or law, from the Bunrach, the bottom law, or the constitution, go the an Uachtaráin. Uachtaráin also means the president, or so high up as well. Tá folklore nua ki, she has a new language, but also new folklore, the word literally in English. Realty agus solas, stars and light, wind and lightning. Dauna realty, the stars, and Dausa na reality, I think, is the dust of the stars. Dausa na reality, the dance of the stars. Rinka na reality, the dance of the stars again. O Craig o Cree, from the earth to the heart. So, yeah. Would you like me to read one?
Yeah.
More? Yeah.
Well, we have time. We have
This
another.
is your request time. What would you like me to read?
You can read anything. I love all those poems.
Okay, so I'll do two more poems. One is called Etiquette for Communication with Friends in Times of Genocide. Thinking of you and yours, hope all your family are safe. As time moves on, sending love, thinking of you, there's no question of safety now. The news comes. I'm so sorry to hear. Let me know if I can do anything. And then, in solidarity, in love, with love, thinking of you, let me know. In solidarity, let me know what love looks like. In this darkness, how often to repeat these words, knowing, not knowing. And I think for a last poem, because I read a poem with a little bit of Irish, I have to make it very clear that my Irish is not my mother tongue. So I'm just going to pull that one out. Here we are. Sorry. Here it is. Yes. Not my mother tongue. Irish is not my mother tongue. It's my other language, the first language I learned to put on. They dressed me in English in all the finery, but they could muster, but in Munster, I began to write my Wales scribblings, osgailing, returned to school so proud I had found the shakings of Peg's language on the cliffs and mountains of Dunquin. But no, my spellings were not Caidonach. My writing did not keep straight enough on the page. And now, in Drumlin country, I find a Munster man, Chul an tí, agus sesin, ag scríobh osgailing. So there's a poet from Munster, Chul an tí is one of his poems, and agus sesin, and he is writing in Irish. Yeah.
You know, there's one poem in here that if you want to read it, I could read. And I found the title just amazing. And I think it's something that we're confronting. You know, how do we talk to people in the midst of a genocide? And the title of the poem is Etiquette for Communication with Friends in Times of Genocide.
I just read that one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm really glad I read that one as well.
Well,
It's
the
a
other
difficult
one,
question. Yeah.
yeah. The other one I really like is The People Who Drowned.
The People Who Drowned. Excellent. Yeah. Let's read that one. Do you know what page it is?
Page 24.
Page 24. Excellent. Okay. The People Who Drowned. The people in the boat, every single one of them, held so many words in their heads, so much love in their hearts, blood in their veins, air in their lungs, all that breath and blood, these words and images falling through the water. That place holds the moments, the baby being kissed, their first steps, laughter and joy, those troublesome teens, that first love, adult embrace. All this falling to pieces, breaking up. We're breaking up. What do we break into? What are we made of? What do we make of it? We all want to live. How does love live? How does love drown.
Wow. That's all these poems, Fiona, are so powerful, and what you've done with this. So we're coming to an end, and at the end of your book, you write about Larry, and I always, when I get up I used to do the host readings at Fergie's for 5 years, and Larry would be there, and I always would say Larry is a cultural treasure of Philadelphia. He's a cultural treasure of the world. But I don't think anything that I've read about Larry says it better than how you do at the end of your book of poems. If I could read it.
Yeah, please.
It says, Larry Robin, there's a lot of talk about literary citizenship and what that means. I am always suspicious of citizenship, given if you are not of that city, you may not be welcome or included. The Irish Constitution, which has its shares of flaws, uses the word Serona to speak of the citizen. Sar means free. I would like to suggest that what Larry cultivates is a republic of Saronic, free people, and maybe to be published by Moonstone or to be present at a Moonstone event is to be Serena. I am happy to sign up for that. Thank you, Larry, for your generous welcome to me and so many others. I mean, that is such a gorgeous way to talk about, and it's really a great thing to say about the Moonstone Art Center. I'm in my ninth season of this program, and this is just one of the things and the activities that Larry has invented and created. In addition to just about every Wednesday night, there is a reading at Fergie's Pub. Tomorrow night, there will be another reading. You'll be one of the 4 or 5 poets that are from different parts of the world that are here in Philadelphia reading their poems. And then there is the publishing. So we have this wonderful chapbook and so many others. I mean, I think Larry's probably close to 200 books that he's published, and it's not like he's been doing this since 1920. So, I mean, it's just amazing what this man does in that little office at 13th and Sampson for the world. And I don't think there's anywhere in the United States that anyone duplicates what Larry does for the love of poetry and the love of literature. I mean, he really, truly does walk his talk every single day. And I'm so glad that Larry and you collaborated, on this book. And because I think as this book goes out to the world, people will know about Moonstone, and it'll spread out, much further, and that there are other people like you that might be looking for somebody to publish something that some other people won't. So, great to Larry, great, and thank you so much for being our guest on Philly Loves Poetry. I loved your poetry, and I'm sure I'm going to hear a lot from our viewers about how much they loved it too. Thank you again, Fiona.
Thank you so much, Charles. Thanks.